Good morning, good morning. Let's see. All right. What's going on, guys? It's Ricky with Learn Plan Profit and TechBit Solutions. Hope that you guys are all having an amazing start to your morning. Today's August 12th, 5:28 in the morning. And today we're going to be getting a CPI data report in the next 2 minutes. So next 1 minute. Right now there's a market expectation that overall CPI is going to rise by 0.2% to 2.8%, and core CPI is going to rise 0.3% to 3% from 2.9%. We'll see what gets reported, and we'll see how the market reacts. Okay? All right. Let's see, we got 15 seconds left. 15 seconds. So I appreciate you guys taking time and joining my live session. I hope that during this live session I can break down the CPI report where it makes sense to you. 3 seconds left. 2, 1. This is QQQ that we're looking at. Looks like we're seeing a push up. Let's see what got reported. We came at 3.1%. Core CPI came in higher. Overall CPI came in lower than what was expected. That's okay. Okay. So core CPI came in. It didn't come in. Oh yeah, it did come in higher than what was expected at the 3.1% before seasonal adjustment. Overall CPI came in as expected, but based off of how it's calculated, came in at 2.7%. So it's bullish, at least for now. Yeah. It's not terrible news. It's not like overall CPI came in also higher than what was expected. So it's not bad news. Let's see. And if you guys want me to break down that CPI report, right? Would you guys like me to break it down and explain it so everyone understands what was reported? You trust the numbers. It's the numbers that have always been reported, and regardless if we trust it or not, it's how the market reacts. So it's the numbers that we go off of, right? It's the numbers that the markets go off of, so that's what matters. Okay. The guy who publishes the it's not a guy, it's a group of people, right? Okay. PLTR pushing higher. I wouldn't mind taking a small short, just so you could see. I carry no open short on PLTR other than my one lucky share, right? I had my one lucky share. I had one share, which I don't want to go long on. So limit order, turn on extended hours, sell this. Huh? Oh, I only have one. There it goes. Okay. I'm going to open up short, and I'll do it with 100 shares. So just about 18K, so it's a very light position. Come on. There it goes, getting filled. Do I think that the CPI report is good news? No. Do I think it's fair enough news that the market can push up higher for? Of course, no question about it. So, let's see what else pushed up. Everything gapped up, but will it hold? That's the magic question. Do I still have my one share here? Oh, I do. I was like, wait, I don't carry a position on this thing. Okay. There we go. Sweet. I just have 100 shares just to start off the morning. All right, let's go ahead, and I just want some skin in the game. You know, what's the point of watching this if I'm not gonna do something about it? All right, so I'm gonna share this link with you guys because I want you guys to all be self-sufficient. I don't want you guys to have to depend on me. Let's say, I can't go live and there's a CPI report. I want you to be able to, understand these CPI reports just as well as I do, if not better, right? So again, the CPI report is posted on the site of bls.gov/CPI. The PPI report is on the same site, just /PPI. That being said, as you can see, we just have to refresh this. It currently says all items rise 0.3% in June. We're not tracking June anymore. We're tracking the month. We're tracking the month of July. So let me go ahead and refresh this. There it goes. CPI, all items rise 0.2% in July. So you can click on that and it looks a little odd. I like the PDF version. I feel like it's easier to read. So this says June 2025. Again, this release date was July 15th. You have to make sure you have the most up-to-date one. And if that's the case, then you click here, you refresh it, and now it says July 2025. August 12th, 2025. That's the most recent one. Are we all there? We all good? Okay, so this is very simple to read. Everything it is that's explained here, with the overall CPI, is just explained here in a just like text format. So it says the CPI report for all urban consumers increased by 0.2% on a seasonally adjusted basis in July, after rising 3% in June. So all that's saying is that, hey, this month for overall CPI, we rose 0.2%. Last month for June, we rose 0.3%. So it's just explaining it, right? The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistic reported today that over the last 12 months, all items increased, and then they just, share what the actual inflation rate is for overall CPI, 2.7% before seasonal adjustment. Okay? Can you guys see this clearly? All right. The index rose 0.2% in July. Let's see. Okay, I just want to make sure that we're covering core CPI. The food index was unchanged over the month, and it just explains food away from home saw a 0.3% increase, while food at home fell 0.1%. So this is just explaining a specific section. We'll get to that in just a little bit. This is what I care about, core CPI. The index for all items less food and energy rose 0.3%. This is core CPI. So core CPI, 0.3%. That's the increase that we saw there. So all items less food and energy rose 0.3% in July, following a 0.2% increase in June. That's just talking about what happened last month. Includes that increase over the month, indexes that increased over the month, and then just gets into detail of like fares, recreation, household finishing and operations, used cars and trucks. These indexes for lodging away from home and communication were among the few major indexes that decreased in July. So all items in this index rose 2.7%, that's overall CPI, for the last 12 months ending July, after the 2.7% over the last 12 months in the month of June. So this is saying that there is no change. So all items less food and energy rose to 3.1% over the last 12 months. The energy index decreased 1.6% over the last 12 months. The food index increased 2.9% in the past year. So all this is saying is that overall CPI, 2.7%, core CPI, 3.1%. Okay, let me double check. Yep, 3.1%, 2.7%. And even this can kind of, you might be even hearing me say it and you're like, that sounds a little odd. That sounds a little complicated. It's really not. So all they're doing here is that, remember, the CPI report, the inflation report is calculated mainly, most of the weight is calculated based off of the last 12 months. This is where they talk about before seasonal adjustment. With that being said, we just added the new month of July. This was a 0.2% increase. Remember, we talked about that for overall CPI. So we added 0.2%. So just think about the CPI as a report or as a pie split into 12 different slices. And the slice that we just added is 0.2, and the slice that we're taking away is 0.1. This was the last year's July 2024. We're taking away 0.1 and we're adding July of this year, right? So then this is what technically caused inflation to increase from June to July. We saw a 0.2% increase in inflation. So then that gets added to our inflation report. And then we remove the month of July. When it comes down to these dot items, the blue line is all items. So you can see that we've been seeing a steady climb since April. We saw a climb in May. We saw a climb in June. And we've stayed break even. No change from June to July, right? On our overall inflation. Core CPI is a little bit different. Core CPI found a support right around, 2.8% in March, April, and May. And then has been on a steady climb since then. As you guys can see that, and again, for those that do not know, core CPI is the main focus for the Federal Reserve, not overall CPI. Overall CPI is what I would say the stock market kind of cares about, but core CPI is really what the Federal Reserve can influence if they raise or cut interest rates. So seeing that this thing is beginning to increase is not technically a good sign. That is where the uncertainty happens, right? So if I were to ask you, hey, is inflation increasing or decreasing? You can ask, well, core inflation or overall inflation. And then they could be like, okay, core inflation. Yeah, core inflation for the past 2 months, right, since May, has been on a steady increase. So yeah, core inflation is increasing. Oh, what about overall inflation? Well, it was increasing from May to June, but from June to July, there was no change. It went from 2.7% and it stayed at 2.7%. Pretty simple, right? And then all that is tracked on these inflation reports are these line items. So every new line is at every new month, right? So we just reported the month of July. These are the items that are being tracked. So food at home, we pretty much ask, okay, from June to July, did food at home, did the price go up or down, and by how much? And then it's for all of these line items, we're just asking from June to July, did we see an increase or decrease in fuel oil, in energy services, and electricity, and utility piped gas services? That's all it's asking. So these numbers, again, are just the change from month to month if the prices are going up or down. And based off of those numbers, then they get the change, right? The change for the month, and then that change gets added for all items, and then just for all items less food and energy. And this is where the 0.3% increase is, right? So for core CPI, 0.3% increase. You can see it right there. And then overall CPI, 0.2% increase, right? So when you add everything, because some things are dropping in price, some things are rising in price. So if that's the case, then again, we see a 0.2%, 0.3%. Let's see how PLTR is. I'll add another 100 shares short. Easy peasy. Short the monster. Short Thanos. There we go. Okay. All right, and then we're just going to go through this very quickly, okay? We good? All right. So all items saw a 0.2% increase in the month of July. Food saw no change. Food at home saw a decrease of 0.1%. Food away from home saw an increase of 0.3%. Energy. Overall, energy saw a 1.1% decrease. That's pretty big. This is probably the biggest contributor often to our inflation rate for overall inflation. And it's the energy sector. So when our inflation rate was up to 9.1%, right? Do you guys remember when when inflation rate was 9.1%? A lot of that had to do with, everything contributed to that, but a lot of that was based off of the energy sector because energy was incredibly expensive during that time. So energy saw a 1.1% decrease. Energy commodities saw a 1.9% decrease. Gasoline types saw a 2.2% decrease. Fuel oil saw an increase of 1.8%. And then we have energy services saw a 0.3% decrease. Utility or electricity saw a 0.1% decrease. Utility gas pipe services saw a 0.9% decrease. All items less food and energy, that's again 0.3%. This is core CPI. This section right here. Commodities, right? So we can see here, commodities saw a 0.2% increase. We have new vehicles, saw no change. Used, let me double check. Yeah, used cars and trucks saw a 0.5% increase. We saw apparel with a 0.1% increase. Medical care commodities, 0.1% increase. Services less energy services saw a 0.1% or 0.4% increase. Shelter saw a 0.2% increase. Transportation services a 0.8% increase, and medical care services a 0.8% increase. So if it wasn't for energy seeing such a big gap down, our inflation rate would have jumped up quite a bit. Okay? So that's a great way to be able to identify it. So if I were to ask you, what was one of the biggest contributors to our inflation rate this month? Well, energy saw a lot of areas where, energy commodities and gasoline of all types saw a pretty significant decrease, a 1.9% decrease and a 2.2% decrease. If these did not see a decrease, we would have had so much that was added that the inflation rate would have jumped much higher than just the 0.2% from June to July, right? But this is what happens. Every single month, these things are calculated, and there are some that are the biggest contributors. So in this case, the biggest gainer for the month of July is a 1.8% increase, and that's fuel oil. Saw a 1.8% increase. But the biggest contributor that helped inflation go down was gasoline, all types, a 2.2% decrease. And you can see, based off of the last 12 months, these are the ones that have seen the biggest drop. You can see that gasoline, all types, has seen a 9.5% drop in the last 12 months. We can see that energy commodities has seen a 9% drop, again, based off of the last 12 months. So consistently, at least for the last 12 months, these two areas have seen steady drops, which have helped our inflation rate. So keeping gasoline prices low and energy prices low is in Trump's best interest if he wants the Federal Reserve to cut rates because of how much it impacts the CPI report. Is that cool? Does it kind of make a little bit more sense now? Yeah? All right, but that is really just it. It looks like the market is reacting in a very positive way, right? We see a strong stretch up, big push, and we'll see. We'll see how the markets continue to trade. I do want to remind you that there are times that the markets can react in a positive way when these reports come out, and then by the time the market opens, the market direction completely shifts, and vice versa. We've seen significant drops, and then right when the market opens, markets end up recovering. So we'll see. Remember, there's no reason to try to predict when all you have to do is prepare, stay patient, stay calculated. We'll see if this thing ends up actually gaining enough momentum where there's enough buying pressure that markets push up to new highs, or if we begin to see a slowdown. Nonetheless, it should be a pretty interesting day today in the market. I hope to see you for our live trading session. We're going to be starting it at 6:30 a.m., which is right at market open. So we have about 40 minutes before we start that. Again, if you ever want to tune on in, I do want to let you guys know that we did just launch LPP 3.0. So if you haven't already signed up and you're a complete beginner, not only do you get access to the new lesson library, but you also get access to our daily live trading session and the LPP group chat. Second link in the description down below whenever you feel like you are ready. And if not, again, just make sure you subscribe to the channel and we'll do our part in keeping you guys up to date. Hope that earned a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing. And like always, let's make sure that we end the year on a green note. Take care, team.